You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. The Philippine government is now in talks with the Indian government to secure 8 million doses of Covaxin. But what exactly is Covaxin? Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have Indian ambassador to the Philippines, Shambhu Kumaran. Ambassador, good to meet you. Welcome to CNN Philippines.
Pleasure to be on your show.
Okay, let's start with Covaxin. Not much is known about it. Can you tell us about this particular vaccine?
Well, Covaxin is an India-developed vaccine by a company called Bharat Biotech, which is one of India's leading vaccine and biotech companies. They've been around in the business for nearly 25 years, and they've supplied billions of doses of vaccines to over 120 countries. Clearly a world leader in this business. Of course, as the pandemic broke out, they worked in collaboration with the Indian Council of Medical Research and the National Institute of Virology to develop Covaxin, which is an inactivated virus-based vaccine, and a vaccine which was deployed immediately when India started its vaccination drive in mid-January. And as of now, we have several millions of doses of Covaxin already administered. And in parallel, the clinical trials were continuing. The largest clinical trial in India for Covaxin was conducted with over 25,000 participants. Mm-hmm. And last week, we had very, very encouraging results with an interim efficacy of 81%. So that's Covaxin for you in a nutshell.
Okay, very interesting. But I want to talk about that clinical trial. You said the biggest in India, which has a sample population of the clinical trial at 25,000, the biggest there. 81% efficacy. Is this on severe, moderate? Is this okay for people with pre-existing conditions? Is it good for seniors? What is it good for?
Well, the efficacy rate is for the entire trial as a whole. And the trial, as you know, is something that is spread out over a period of time. It had participants from various age groups. And that final data with regard to various categories of the population, those would be coming out with time. More and more details would be released. But the overall efficacy rate is what we're talking about in terms of 81%. Being an inactivated virus vaccine, the safety parameters were very excellent right from the beginning.
Yeah.
And in fact, as you may know, Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, was himself vaccinated with Covaxin earlier this month, on the 1st of March, in fact. And he is, as you know, is in an age group which is above the age of 65. So that clearly shows that we are very confident about the quality of this vaccine with regard to elderly people as well.
So developed and manufactured. Covaxin is developed and manufactured in India, also being used already in India. It's on the third phase of clinical trials. Would you tell us, Ambassador, how many have been vaccinated in India with Covaxin?
At the moment, we have about 25 million overall vaccinations, and our assessment is that the Covaxin numbers are in the region of about 20%. I can't give you an exact number, but it is in the region of about 4 to 5 million is what I would estimate.
So, okay, because Covaxin already applied for emergency use authority, I believe, if not late January, sometime in February?
It was on the 21st of January this year.
And I believe the FDA was saying they were still in need of additional documents. What documents need to be submitted to the Food and Drug Administration?
Well, the documents that they were awaiting were actually the interim data for the phase 3 trials, the efficacy data.
Okay.
The other data had already been submitted at the time of the EUA application. And that data with regard to the interim efficacy trial was shared earlier this week, day before yesterday, in fact. And that now completes, to our mind, the documentation requirements to make the EUA possible in a very urgent time frame.
Very good. It comes at a very, time that we are in need of a number of vaccines. Can you tell us, Ambassador, is there any study about Covaxin that is efficacious or works against the UK or South Africa variant?
There are studies underway, Pinky, and the initial indications are that the vaccine may have encouraging potential against these variants, which I think is actually one of the most significant strong points of this vaccine as we move ahead. The formal results of those studies are expected very shortly. But we believe that the science itself, the inactivated virus, since we use the whole virion, these vaccines are able to combat, and as compared to some other vaccines which use only a part of the spike protein,
Right.
These inactivated virus vaccines have the potential. And Bharat has actually added an adjuvant, which is a patented adjuvant, based on its long knowledge of the vaccine technology and science. And that has generated a very deep level of immunity, what we in the science refer to as T-cell level immunity. So both from the point of view of the breadth of the coverage in terms of variants, and also in terms of the depth of protection it provides in terms of the T-cell level immunity, the vaccine has been most encouraging. And I would really hope that the Filipino people will be able to benefit from the value of this vaccine. So we're really looking for an early granting of the emergency use authorization, and also immediate commencement of negotiations for supply contracts.
And let's talk about the supply contract negotiations between Covaxin and the Philippine government. There is talk, of course, of about a purchase of 8 million vaccines. Where is what is the current status of negotiations? Is there already a purchase agreement, supply agreement?
Well, at the moment, the formal negotiations are yet to start. The local representatives of Bharat Biotech have been engaged, both with the FDA in terms of regulatory approvals, but also with the vaccine Czar's office, Secretary Galvez's office, and the Department of Health, and I also presume with the IATF, with all the stakeholders here who are decision makers in terms of vaccine procurement. And I believe that the initial soundings have been very encouraging. India and the Philippines, as you know, a very strong partnership in healthcare. India is the single largest source of pharmaceutical products for the Philippines, and we are the world's largest manufacturer of vaccines. So therefore, the fact that Indian vaccines are trusted, you've been inoculating Filipino kids with Indian vaccines for years with absolutely no side effects or negative consequences. So there's a great degree of trust in Indian medicine, in Indian pharma. And Bharat Biotech's vaccine, therefore, we believe will also enjoy the same level of trust and confidence. We are not new vaccine manufacturers who started making vaccines when the pandemic broke out. We have a history of solidly researched and well-manufactured products. And also in that context, I'd like to say that Secretary Galvez right now is in Pune, negotiating a large consignment of vaccines that are going to be manufactured by the Serum Institute, upwards of 30 million doses. So I do believe that looking ahead, this process of vaccination is likely to last for at least a year and a half. Looking ahead, both Covaxin and other India-made vaccines will provide a great deal of support to the Filipino people, in keeping with our larger approach that in India we have adopted from the Prime Minister himself. The directive has come that we should see vaccines as a global public good. India has supplied already 50 million doses of vaccines. India will be the single largest source of vaccines for the COVAX facility. So we really have a big role to play, and I hope that the engagement with the Philippines will reflect that.
And it actually makes me wonder why we didn't look into earlier negotiations with some of the vaccine. I know that there is one, Novavax, which is also developed in the United States, if I'm not mistaken, but will be manufactured by the Serum Institute of India. But okay, so with regards to the formal negotiations, so there's nothing yet except negotiations at the moment.
Yeah, at the moment, the company has expressed its willingness. A certain indicative price has been shared. The local partners, Ambika, IP Biotech, and the Family Vaccination Service Centers, they are in touch not just with the government, but with a large number of local government units in the Philippines, as well as with with the private sector through tripartite arrangements. So we really see multiple pathways by which this vaccine can reach the Philippine people. We'd obviously like to start off with a big contract with the government, and thereafter look at tripartite arrangements. But these are progressing in parallel and not sequentially.
But Ambassador, can you confirm that when we're talking about negotiations, we're looking at about 8 million vaccines initially?
Well, the important thing here I'd like to stress is that the earlier we have this negotiation and the earlier we close the term sheet, the larger the number of vaccine doses that may be available. 8 million is definitely achievable. We are looking at anything upwards of 8 million over a period of time. Of course, over a period of a year to 18 months, we could even go up to 20 million doses. It really depends on the kind of agreement that we can reach and the further interest of the Philippine LGUs and the private sector. Definitely, as a vaccine, this is one of the world's leading vaccines. You have the confidence of Indian pharma, of history of Indian pharma, which is very reputed, and you have all the data in the public domain, peer-reviewed in reputed international journals. You can point to Bharat Biotech and Covaxin with your eyes shut, and I'm sure that the Philippines will be.
So negotiations are underway. Of course, as you mentioned, we need a term sheet, a supply agreement, a procurement agreement, and all that. But in the event that this is, if you were just to give us an estimate, Ambassador, things go well. When do you think the Philippines will be able to get its first batch of Covaxin? Would it be sometime in May, earliest, or June?
Well, here again, I have encouraging news to report, Pinky. The point is that Bharat Biotech's vaccine manufacturing capacities are being ramped up. But we can still hope to get a significant number of doses even in late April and in early May. And of course, other doses in May and June, where I am aware that the Philippines has a certain shortage in terms of its requirements. So this is a unique value for Bharat's vaccine. But provided we can move on this negotiation very quickly and hopefully close this negotiation in a matter of days, if not weeks.
We'll continue to monitor the developments on this story, on Covaxin. Indian Ambassador to the Philippines, Shambhu Kumaran. Ambassador, pleasure to have you. Thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
Thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.